Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fortress Comic News, episode 134. I am one of your hosts, Chris, alongside my infected co-host, Mike.
Yeah, it's flu season.
Yay!
I'm getting over my cold. I'm just starting to feel better on Sunday night here, everybody. So, but never fear, the show must go on.
Always.
That being said, we have an awesome interview today with Niall Presnall, who is creator of the Space Heists, Vyvy and Qwerty. It's so we're going to be talking about that a little bit.
Yes, you'll hear it again in the interview, but the Kickstarter starts as this episode launches.
Yeah.
So go check it out. First two issues are really good, especially if you like Star Wars or Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that.
And Space Heists. I think Han Solo knows a little bit about Space Heists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first two issues were a lot of fun. I really enjoyed them. But
cool. Yeah, so we can jump into the news. I actually watched last night. I watched Hobbs and Shaw. Have you seen that?
No.
I love the Fast and Furious movies. They're like my guilty pleasure. So
my quick background on Fast and Furious. My significant other loves Fast and Furious. Mm-hmm. I, before meeting her, watched the first two. I was like, this franchise is garbage. And then never watched any more. And then I think it was the trailer for like 7, where they literally drive a car off of one skyscraper into another skyscraper.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And I looked at her and I go, what the fuck is this movie franchise?
Yeah.
And I've been caught up since. And those movies are like stupid fun.
Yeah, they're so like... And if you like the stupid fun of Fast and Furious, they take that and crank it up even more in Hobbs and Shaw. There's a couple cameos from like famous actors that I'm not going to spoil in case anybody hasn't seen the movie, but they're really good. And like, you know, it's to the degree of like a helicopter attached to a car, and the car is like pulling the helicopter. Like that's just the movie, like the times 100, the whole movie. Like it doesn't stop.
I watched a movie this week too.
What'd you watch?
I watched Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Oh yeah, I started that one, and the acting was pretty atrocious, so I had to take a break.
So, as has been my problem with Godzilla movies for the past 2 now.
Yeah.
And if you want to count the like 99, 2000.
Oh, Godzilla. Matthew Broderick?
Yeah.
Godzilla 2000.
My problem is I don't care about people. Right. And I don't necessarily mean that in my personal life, although in my personal life I don't really care about people.
Yeah, no, just pretty much in general.
But I just... When the name of the movie is Godzilla, just show me fucking Godzilla fighting things. Yeah. So you could have cut at least 45 minutes out of that movie and it would have made a difference to me. I mean, the whole sequence where Eleven and her mother are like running around like, I'm going to control all the monsters, and then we're going to go the upside down. And that was whatever.
I thought you told me you haven't seen Stranger Things yet.
I'm in like season 3 now. So yeah, that whole sequence was like to get us to where we needed to be, where you have Monster Zero come out and Rodan and all them was cool, and the fight at the end was awesome. But if you took all that away and just made it a classic Godzilla movie where like Godzilla comes out of the water and then King Ghidorah comes out and fights him, it would have been a 10 out of 10 for me, because the fights were as good as anything in those old Godzilla movies. Mm-hmm. Just pumped up to 11 because they actually put money into the CG. So for the most part, I enjoyed it, but we need to stop with the humans. I don't.
Please.
People are getting smashed. I get it. Okay. I don't care how it affects their lives.
Talk about like the only time they ever show the people, like the humans in the original Godzillas, is just for them to like go Godzilla. Like,
it's Godzilla.
Yeah, like he's killing all of us. That's like that's all the dialogue there is, and maybe like a little bit of explanation, like radioactive lizard. And they're like, okay, that's all we need to see. Okay, show Godzilla for another hour.
Yeah. So good, not great, but as a Godzilla fan, I did enjoy it.
Yeah. All right, then I'm going to check it out again. It was just like the beginning. I know the beginning starts off where like you need to see why what the main character scientist has ties or an investment in Godzilla because like she loses a child or something. I don't know. It's like you already lost me. I'm like, everybody lost a child. The Godzilla destroyed the whole city. Like,
okay, I'll help you skip the first 45 minutes.
Okay.
Two people lost their kid in the first Godzilla movie. That made them separate. They created this stupid little device that makes them control the monsters. Dad finds out there's a secret organization that is checking Godzilla. Mom is decided that she's going to destroy the world with this device by awakening Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and other random monsters. They come to a head. They find out a terrorist is behind it, and Godzilla shows up. So just fast forward to 45 minutes. I've caught you up now. And you don't have to worry about the rest.
You should make your own custom Blu-ray where you cut out 45. You're like, okay, hold on. You can watch it, but what I'm going to do is let me explain it really quick, and then you can tell me if you want to go back and watch it. They're like, who the hell is this guy?
It just says Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and it cuts to this image right here.
Yeah,
it's like, all right, this is what happens.
Yeah,
whenever a human shows up and just
a big head on the screen. Okay, this is what's going to happen. This is the 30-second recap of the scene. You're not missing anything, and we're moving on. Or just like add a bunch of filler of 2 action figures fighting. Like, I would honestly rather see that.
Which I could do because I have the action figures at my house.
I love those. Just a quick aside, there's all those like very specific fandoms you can get into, like, you know, the people that collect the Gundams that build them and paint them and stuff. And then there's like the Godzilla figures. There are so many statues and figures from over the years that it's like, and they're all really cool, but it's like once you start investing, man, you can't stop. There's so many.
The only Godzilla memorabilia I'd ever want is Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
Just because I love the idea of the Americans creating a weaponized Godzilla to send back in the past to take over the Japanese.
It only makes sense.
Yeah.
But and also the big museum out by me, Mass Mocha, the Museum of Contemporary Art, has like this crazy like weird toy exhibit and stuff. And someone sent me a picture. And one of the original Godzilla toys is like this giant Godzilla. And what you do is you blow into the tail and bubbles come out of its mouth.
Well, that's fantastic.
I was like, how do they not make these still? Like,
I'll take 3.
Yeah, these would be flying off the shelves. I did kind of look like a bog, though, so I could see where it might not be able to sell to children.
I mean, that was my plan with one
yeah, it's the Godzilla bog. Anyways, TV news, anything? Oh, well, actually, Titans started back up, so I'm on episode 2 of Titans. Pretty interesting. I didn't realize we were just going to jump right into Dr. Light breaks out of jail, and yes, this Dr. Light is a lot cooler than the comic book Dr. Light, because he basically like uses energy to like explode people from like inside out if he like touches you, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, so that was like really surprising. So basically Hawk and Dove are like doing their own thing, and there's something that brings them back to the Titans Tower, and they keep referring to it as like Titans Tower, and how they're like they started recruiting younger people that are like metahumans and stuff. It's really cool. Also, they kind of teased like Nightwing is coming, because like, you know, Robin, Jason Todd's there, and he's like, well, if I'm Robin and you said you're not Robin, who are you then? So it's like, ooh, maybe look at the Nightwing costume soon. It's pretty good, you know. It's super cool. Yeah, and you can definitely tell it's definitely all with the fans in mind of like the stuff they're doing. You're like, wow, that's really cool to see. So I'm enjoying it. Preacher, did you watch last week's episode of that?
Yeah, I missed last week's episode.
Okay, well, spoiler, not spoiler, I guess. He's not dead. Well, he's kind of dead, but he's not dead, if you remember.
Okay.
So he like dies, then he goes, and they try to give him the throne, or I don't know, they want him to be God. So we see what happens when he refuses that. And Jesse has like a whole conversation with God about like how it was all a test for him, and that he refused the throne, but God was like, well, you still wanted to take it. And he's like, that's not fair. You know what I mean? He's like, but I didn't. Like, it's not by the choice. He's like, well, still, you didn't have your heart in it and all this stuff. So, basically, he comes back and he finds Tulip and Cassidy, and they had just got done hooking up, and he walks in. So, like, naturally, that's what happens. So I think tonight's the season finale. I don't know if it's tonight but like basically the apocalypse is getting ready to happen. So either tonight's episode or the next one, we're going to see the apocalypse happening. Jesse couldn't stop it because he wanted to take the throne, but didn't actually take the throne. So I guess we'll find out.
Interesting.
Yeah. This is pretty awesome news, huh? Considering that, the holiday special doesn't exist. Jon Favreau wants to make a new Star Wars holiday special for Disney Plus, which, yes, take my money.
So, as somebody who owns a copy of the holiday special,
be careful what you say. They're sending agents to your house. These guys are like rappelling from helicopters.
Yeah, the holiday special is pretty atrocious.
Yeah, it really is.
I like the idea of Favreau kind of taking that and quote unquote fixing it and doing something cool with it. I think it would be a great way to like give back to Lucas and be like, listen, we took your characters, we're trying to do new things with them, but here's us trying to pay homage to what you did years ago by creating this holiday special and kind of redoing it. And it would be even cooler if Lucas was involved in some way as well, as kind of an extra pat on the back. But I love the idea. I'm down for it. As long as there's a sequence of Chewie and his wife and child just roaring at each other nonsense for 10 minutes, I'm good.
Because that's what everyone wants to see, right? I will say, what the best part of the does everybody agree the best part of the holiday special is the animated Boba Fett part?
That's the part that people like the most, yeah, because not only is it the first time we see Boba Fett, but Boba Fett's lore has just grown over the decades, so everybody loves him.
I mean, come on. He's got an awesome costume. This is pretty...
Backpacks have jets.
We've been talking about this for a while, but it's finally been announced. Tom Welling and Erica Durant have been cast in the Crisis crossover as Lois and Clark are coming back from the CW. So everybody's in this Crisis crossover, pretty much.
Yeah. I'm excited for this. I like Smallville. I'm not afraid to say it. I liked Smallville.
Yikes.
I thought Smallville was a good show.
For what it was at the time, we were living in a different time, man. Like, people who read comics weren't all like, ooh, I read comics. They were kind of just like not admitting it to people, and nobody was collecting, and The Walking Dead was a big thing. And now it's like, why didn't we have Smallville sooner?
Well, here's the thing. When I look back, like, Smallville could easily have been a part of the Arrowverse. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing in Smallville that's any less like CW-y than anything we see in Flash or Arrow. The only thing that they kind of falter on is the fact that he's never actually Superman in it.
Right.
Other than that, it's one for one what they're doing in Arrow and Flash and all that. Like, all the romance crap is there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I could do without it, but I mean, that's what CW is. And I thought they did a cool job with that show. I mean, they did everything that the CW did. I mean, they had the JSA, they had all these characters. Like, I mean, they like Stargirl first appeared on that. Like, even though we already talked about getting a Stargirl show eventually or something, but yeah, those last two seasons when he's like out of college and he's in Metropolis, are some of the best Superman live action stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Period. Because the JSA's there. I mean, the Aquaman bit was kind of stupid, but some of the other characters that show up, it's a decent show. I do recommend it. Yeah. And I'm glad to see Tom Welling come back to the role. Dude, he's been waiting his whole life to do this. Like, he's been ready. He's been sitting on my phone, like, finally. He has a Superman phone in his home, and he's just like, one of these days,
They're gonna want like I'm getting to that age where I can play old Superman.
Well, the rumor was back in the day that after what was it season 9 or 10 when he kind of puts the suit on, that was going to lead into the movies, and he was going to take over. And then Bryan Singer did it and decided to do a sequel to the old ones and the Magic Kiss and everything. And
makes you forget everything.
That's right, everybody. Superman Returns did happen.
Yeah. But anyways, let's jump to this. Not to dull anybody down, but we're going to jump to this awesome interview with Niall Presnall, and we'll see everyone on the other side.
Welcome back, everybody. I'd like to welcome a very special guest to the show, Mr. Niall Presnall. Welcome to the show, Niall.
Hi, what's up?
So, we always start with all of our guests asking, what got you into comics, and then what eventually made you want to create your own comic?
Well, what got me into comics, I don't know, it has to go back to those Saturday morning cartoons, right? Ninja Turtles, X-Men, stuff like that, and it's kind of like the gateway drug. You want more, and you find that there's, literature out there and comics, and you're like, oh man, once that happened, it was over. And in terms of getting into comics, like professionally, I don't know, it's just, I feel like, I don't know, when I was 19, 20, I was going through a transitional time, and I was realizing that the stuff I used to love, I could still love, and it just kind of seemed like a rosy, ideal kind of dream job, and I decided to pursue it, and here we are.
So, what was the first book that you created?
So the Space Heist of Vyvy and Qwerty is the first book that I've created. I've done various anthology stuff in the past when I was younger, but nothing that was my own. So the Space Heist of Vyvy and Qwerty, which launched on Kickstarter originally, I want to say 2016, is my first series.
Very cool. So let's jump right into that. How did this book come to be?
I think it kind of just started as a writing exercise, throwing something out there that I hadn't done before. And I don't know, obviously, like, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi, huge fan of Star Wars, which is like space fantasy. And I guess the Space Heist of Vyvy and Qwerty is kind of like my goofy Star Wars fan fiction. Like, it's kind of, if I could explore this universe and like add to it, what would I do? How would I make it my own? And I just went full throttle and decided to focus on a couple characters that had some relatable issues. The book's, it's a space heist book, but it's mostly about family. So it's similar to the Fast and the Furious series that way, where it's just like, go, 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 action, 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 but family.
Yeah, well, reading it, I really noticed that you and I have the same sensibilities, because I saw all the Star Wars references throughout the book, and then I saw that you threw in a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy in there as well, and then just the character development between the two lead characters and their relationship was just a lot of fun.
Thank you.
So, let's get into kind of the nitty gritty then. Like, you're writing this book, you think it's gonna be something good, you want to do it. How do you find an artist?
That's a good question. See, it's been so long. I have trouble remembering where I met Carlos. Yeah, I believe at the time I was looking for artists on DeviantArt, which was more popular back then, and Digital Webbing, which is a comic creators forum, basically. So probably one of those two places.
And you guys just hit it good and decided to do it together?
Yeah, it's a really unique sort of boxy, angular art style that's animated, and I'm a big fan of like more serious stuff that's that you think is lighter because of the artistic direction. So I know that. So I knew that I wanted to have something that got kind of that cartoon vibe, and Carlos was just great for it. And he's extremely professional. He's fast, and when you're finding an artist, it really helps to pay them.
Yes.
So he works for a currency, and I gave him some, and we made a partnership.
Very nice. So, when doing your first issue, obviously you said you did a bunch of anthology stuff ahead of time, so you had some experience. But what were some of the learning curves that you came across in doing a full run comic?
Geez, how much printing and shipping costs? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily think about when you're reading a comic that pops up when you're creating one. So stuff like lettering, bubble placement, flow from the page, panel to panel stuff. I think as the more I create, the more I learn. So like, you want those page turns. You want something at the end of every page where you're like, ooh, what's going to happen next? So I think there's a big difference in that aspect from like issue 1 to the upcoming issue 3. I think I've gotten better at that. And then you always kind of want your cliffhanger on the last page, right? And so in the first issue, the cliffhanger is kind of just like a small panel. And coming up in this upcoming issue 3, there's an end, but there's also a lead-in for something else. And I think it's a lot bigger and more dramatic than anything I've done in the past. So stuff like that. And then it's just, I mean, it's weird because writing comics, you think, I'm going to create comics. And then the nitty-gritty of that, it's almost like writing comics is the least important part, right? So I gotta be a project manager. I have to be able to articulate notes about art, what's working, what doesn't. So using language to talk about art is something like I hadn't really done before. So that's a learning experience. And then and that goes for everything: the colors, the letters.
Yeah, it's always the little things that come together. When you're a casual reader, you don't think as much about it. But when you get into the business, whether it's reviewing side or creating side, the little things really just matter so much because you don't think about it when it's good. It's one of those kind of thankless jobs like lettering. Like when it's good, nobody thinks about you. But when it's bad, everybody's like, "Oh, why'd you do that?"
Yeah, and lettering's so incredibly important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely a relatable thing, especially for more casual readers. I know, when I was a kid reading comics, I'd read comics with one parent, but the other parent would be like, I don't know how to read this, and it's because of the letters. And so you need those bubbles to be able to guide you through the page to page.
Yeah. So you did the first 2 on Kickstarter. They were successful, and the reason you're here talking to me today is because the third one is going to be jumping on Kickstarter soon. So my first question here is if people want to check out the first 2 before getting into the third, is it available to them outside of the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so issues 1 and 2 are both on Comixology, and then through the Kickstarter, there will be PDFs available for issues 1 and 2. As long as Kickstarter doesn't stop me from doing it, I'm giving away the first PDF issue for free, so people can check it out on the Kickstarter page. And then, besides issue 3, we'll also be doing a collected graphic novel. So the first 3 issues will be collected, and that'll be easily accessible as well.
Awesome. So so the first 3 issues are the first story arc, so to say.
Yeah. The third issue seemed like a good emotional wrap up for one aspect of it, and then we find out a secret, and the secret is going to turn Vyvy's whole world upside down.
So is this a book that you see going on for a bit, or do you have a finite amount of issues that you want to tell the story in?
I don't have a finite amount of issues I want to tell the story in. I do feel like there's an end that I'm working towards, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Just ongoing comics being what they are, right? And I'm self-publishing. So I'm going to do my best to tell the stories I want to tell. And if I get to really sink my teeth in and do, 10, 20, 50 issues, I will. And if I can do, 5 good ones, I'll be happy.
So then, the Kickstarter, it starts, what was it, September 23rd?
September 23rd, so that's Monday, depending, that is Monday, but depending on when you're listening to this, it's like, tomorrow or right now.
So as you all are listening to it, it is on Kickstarter right now. So make sure to go check it out. We will have a link down below in the show notes so that you can just click on that and go check it out. The first 2 issues are a blast. Like I said, if you have, to any listeners out there, if you have similar sensibilities to me, Star Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy, just sci-fi in general, it's a really fun, at least the first 2 issues were really fun. And I do recommend checking out the book. So other than Kickstarter, if there's somewhere that people want to follow you, where's the best place to send them now?
I'm on Twitter at Niall Presnall, just my name. You can also follow our comic, Vyvy and Qwerty, on Twitter. So it's just at Vyvy and Qwerty. Vyvy is spelled V-Y-V-Y. I'm on Instagram. That's Niall Comics. And then you can, of course, Carlos Trigo, our artist, is on Instagram, Twitter. Renee Arabia, our letterist, is on Instagram and Twitter. Asmarco Valado, our colorist, is not on those platforms. He's a mystery man. Our new editor for issue 3, TJ Shevlin, he's on Instagram and Twitter. Stars My Destination is his @handle. And then we have a very special variant cover, Kickstarter exclusive variant cover from Jay Fabre, who does the art on The Pale, which is a really cool webcomic that's sort of Twin Peaksy.
So Niall, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to the success of issue 3. And we'll hope to have you back again sometime.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
And we're back.
Hey, so go check that out. Donate to the Kickstarter now. It's live. Woohoo!
Yeah, once again, cool book. A lot of fun. If you like the stuff I mentioned, check it out, because it's right up your alley.
Oh, yes. Time to get to the comic news.
Comics.
So Marvel has unveiled 4 new one-shots tying into the Annihilation Scourge event. Ooh, one-shots. They are Beta Ray Bill, Fantastic Four, Nova, and Silver Surfer. Will be starring characters in all the one-shots, and this is happening in December. So are you picking all those up?
Yeah.
Even Nova? I feel like they push Nova, but like, what's so interesting about Nova? He's part of the Nova Corps, right?
It's Marvel Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, you have a point.
It's so they've been doing this a lot recently, especially the past like 2 or 3 years, where it's not really an event as much as like War of the Realms, where there's a War of the Realms 1 through 7 or whatever. It's kind of like a mini event where they did it with the Defenders, where they did like Defenders Alpha, and then they did Silver Surfer, Namor, so on and so forth, and those all connected together for one story. So it's kind of what they're doing here. It's an interesting way to do a crossover. Not my favorite way, but it's Annihilation, and I have a soft spot for Annihilation. That was one of the first Marvel books I started picking up when I got back into comics, and I'm pretty much down for anything Annihilation. when they try it.
Yeah, so I mean, Beta Ray Bill I think is pretty cool. So is Fantastic Four. Yeah, it'll be cool to see how those books turn out.
Yeah, I'm a big Silver Surfer guy too. I do enjoy the character.
So we finally got an announcement. The the Marvel flagship Star Wars comic, the titled Star Wars, is ending in November with issue 75, and December will have a one-shot titled Star Wars Empire Ascendant, leading directly into the event of Empire Strikes Back. Greg Pak is co-writing with Charles Soule, Simon Spurrier, and Ethan Sachs, with Luke Ross, Roland Boshi on art. Yeah, so I guess this is like, okay, we're done with this segment of Star Wars. We're going to kick it off and start on this segment, kind of.
Yeah, so as somebody who's been reading Marvel Star Wars since the beginning,
right?
This was the book that they started all with. This is the Star Wars #1 that sold 1 million copies. That made a big deal. My two things here are, we've been leading up to the events of Empire for a while. Like, we're kind of we were in the middle of a story that was right after Rogue One, and then they got into a story where we're trying to find Hoth and what's going on. So like, there's been the lead that we've been getting to, and this book especially, if you're an Aphra fan, it's supposed to show like what the fate of Aphra is, because the Aphra book takes place at the same time period as well. I'm excited because it's tying up the main Star Wars book, bringing it into Empire, and I want to know what's next. Now, there's a small con in New York happening soon. I have a feeling that we're going to get the answer to what's next after this at that. And I hope that they just keep the story going and say, all right, whatever the next book's called, it's Star Wars blank #1, takes place right after Empire, and we just kind of build the story in between the movies.
Yeah, and the little con he's talking about is New York Comic Con. I was confused as well. I was like, what little con is coming up?
Yeah, this tiny little con, you know. Is that like what is it, Javits Center or something?
Yeah. Yeah, casual, 100,000 people. No big deal.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if we don't get that announcement.
Yeah, they're timing it just right. I'm actually, I don't know. I was a little sad about this, but who the hell knows anymore after reading this week's Batman, which I unfortunately have to talk about.
It's my favorite news of the week.
Oh God, DC has, and I'll talk about it after this, but DC has announced a new creative team for the new main Batman title. James Tynion IV. So we're already off to a good start. Alongside Tony S. Daniels is going to take over the book in January. I love Tony's art. Tynion said he wants to bring back Nightwing and the other Bat family characters, and you've already lost me. I forgot. I think we had a Detective Comics line to talk about Batman and the Bat family, right? It's like, every time they do this, it always feels so forced to me that it's like, we're forcing the Bat family on you because like, you don't read enough Bat family, and it's like, can we just get someone to just do Batman again? Like, just give me Batman. I don't know. And we all know James Tynion and his Batman Eternal and how he tried to put too many characters together, and that was a nightmare. And I'll never forget it because I spent so much money on those friggin' books. So who would have thought, new Batman news would not make me a happy person? Anyways.
So my favorite part of this whole story was when I'm reading Tynion's like his, thanks for having me and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And he's talking about, he's like, and it's really great because I've always been kind of Batman adjacent by writing books. I'm very proud of, like Batman Eternal, Detective Comics.
It's like, dude,
and then a bunch of other stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, he likes Batman Eternal.
As like, he's just so ignorant that he thinks like, if I say it was good and everybody will think it was a good book, like, what the hell? I don't know.
If you enjoy Batman Eternal, God bless you, but I didn't.
What was even happening in that book? Like, if someone could just sit me down and explain it to me, then I might like it. I don't know. It was a weekly book, and I still don't know what the hell happened. I lost a lot of money that year. That's what happened.
Tony Daniel, love his art. He's doing the current run as well.
Yeah.
Tinian, like, okay, so first off, we have this whole storyline going on where Alfred's dead. And I think I said at the time, I really hope they explore.
Okay. I'll fix that in the next issue, okay? The issue I just read.
Okay, that makes me mad.
Yeah.
I said at the beginning, I hope they explore a Batman without a support system. Well, even before what you just said, you're just bringing in Nightwing to be the support system.
Right.
So that upset me. The Bat family, I'm cool with Batman and Robin. Batwing, Batwoman, Batgirl, Batdog, Batcat, Batcrocodile,
Batcow.
Just Batman's supposed to be a lone ranger, actually. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I really like him on his own. I don't mind the support system of Oracle or Alfred.
Right.
But I was really looking forward to seeing him explore Gotham and be a vigilante without that support system. That being said, too, everyone knows our complaints about Tinian. I have very rarely enjoyed anything Tinian's done. And even then, like, the one book I can pull out of my hat is the TMNT book that he did, which was Batman TMNT. And that's more just, I thought it was a cool crossover. I don't think it's a very great book. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think this is the best way. Like, for a mainstream Batman book, they've lost me. I might not even read this one, honestly. I might read the first couple and then... but I'll tell you, we can't end on such a somber note. I want to talk about something fun that's coming from DC.
Well, let me throw one more quick point out there. I do kind of think that this is a holdover.
Yeah, I hope so.
He's not going to be on for years and years and years. This is a holdover move so that when Bendis is done playing with superheroes in the 31st century, he'll come to Batman.
I really hope so. But
go with your happy news.
Okay, happy news. Well, we already talked about it. The Tales from the Dark Multiverse. I was just reading through previews tonight, and I'm looking at the covers. You get Blackest Night, Infinite Crisis, but like, now these are books I'm super excited for. And I will say, like, James Tynion is writing the Infinite Crisis one, but I don't care because it's Dark Multiverse, Infinite Crisis. Like, these are the fun stories I want. Like, he could do these stories all day. You know, like alternate universe crap. Let him have fun with that. Just keep away from my Batman. But dude, the cover is like of the Blackest Night one is like, you know, Sinestro, and he's torn between black and white. And he's like getting eaten by a zombie Superman. Like, sign me up for 10 copies, please. I'm excited for that. I cannot wait for that. Anyways, so let's talk about what we read this week. I might as well just start right off with Batman, huh? I might as well just everything else this week I actually really enjoyed. So Batman 79, and actually I talked to a friend who doesn't read comics. He talks with some friends that do read comics, and he actually like saw some clips or pictures, snapshots of Batman 79, and he's like, dude, they're paying they're giving a nod to Magnum PI. Like, I really like Magnum PI. Like, that's really cool. Like, but I'm like, as someone who's been reading Batman from issue 1, I don't need a Batman with short shorts, a mustache, like a Tommy Bahama shirt on, hanging out on the beach. And this is my second issue of getting that Batman. Apparently, everything's feeling really rushed right now because now they're explaining themselves like, oh, all those things that we like alluded to in the last issue, this issue we're going to explain. I'm like, oh, the reason we're staying here is because there's a freighter on its way with Venom that we're going to intercept. And so, like, everybody knows Bane needs Venom to keep going, so they're going to intercept the boat, steal the Venom, and then somehow they're going to use that to defeat Bane. Meanwhile, like, Bruce is like, oh, I got a call from Alfred. He said he's okay. He's in the safe zone, so we can go back to Gotham now. Which doesn't make any sense because we saw Alfred get his neck snapped. So, number one, how is he in the safe zone? Number two, if it's not in the safe zone, then it's probably Bane messing with them, which that would be a lot cooler than Alfred actually being alive. it's 50-50 either way right now. It could just be really sloppy writing. I don't know what's going on anymore. That being said, we get more like Catwoman and Batman saying "I love you" back and forth. Oh, I love you, Cat. I love you, Bat. And it's like, this is not my Batman. I don't know whose Batman this is. I hope it's someone's Batman. Not my Batman. Anyways, you're just loving watching this torturous soul of mine to talk about these awful issues.
Remember when Tom King was the belle of the ball?
Oh yeah. Oh man. What happened, dude? Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Anyways, let's talk about some cool stuff. You haven't been reading Year of the Villain books, right?
No.
This one's Lex Luthor this week. This might have been one of the coolest because the cover is like Lex Luthor standing, and there's all these other Lex Luthors dead underneath him, like alternate reality Lex Luthors. So we know right now in Justice League, Lex Luthor's doing this whole Apex Predator thing, right? Yeah. So this issue, he actually goes from like Earth to Earth, like in the multiverse, and kills Lex Luthor's like alternate reality because he wants to be the number one. And it's pretty crazy. Like you see one Lex Luthor that's Batman. You see one Lex Luthor that's like a hippie with a beard that spends all his knowledge and power like growing a garden. Like he just has this giant botanical garden, and he's like a super hippie version of Lex. So he's like really okay with dying. He's just like, yeah, I mean, it's about to happen. Like you're the number one. You got to be the one. Really cool issue. So you just get to see multiple Earths and multiple versions of Lex. But the key to it is he actually goes to an alternate reality where like a younger version of himself, his dad is like an alcoholic, and he saves this child version of himself. And the reason he does that is at the end of the issue we find out he uses the Black Mercy, which we know puts people in like a trance. He like uses that to put this kid in a trance, and it says like on the container like, I don't know, alternate Lex number one in case things go south for him. So that was pretty cool. Age of Resistance Ray number one. I read that. Did you read that?
I actually didn't. No.
Oh, really? 1 second. Sorry, I had to cough up a lung there. The Age of Resistance Ray number one, and these are all one shots, I think, right? All these Age of Resistance. Okay. It was a really cool little side story in between Ray leaving at the end of Force Awakens to go find Luke. She talks to at the end of the Force Awakens, she leaves with Chewie to go find Luke because they finished the map to find Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. So she has a talk with Leia. She recaps like the whole death scene with Han and kind of explains to Leia like, you know, they weren't really fighting, like he just wanted to get his son back. Leia kind of accepts the death of Han, or at least isn't too sad about it. So on the way to find Luke, that the part that I can't remember the name of the part in the Force Awakens on the Millennium Falcon that like blows up and they rip it out of the dashboard or whatever. That part actually goes haywire again. So they, on the way to see Luke, they have to make a pit stop at this like junkyard. The person running the junkyard is this really cool alien looking being, like a giant, almost like a praying mantis, like really giant alien creature. It's really creepy looking. Lets them go in the junkyard for a price and then sets up a trap to try to kill them. So Rey finds out like this alien is running this junkyard and like abusing people and enslaving them. So she uses her Jedi mind tricks to say like, you're gonna release all these people and turn yourself in, and then it actually moves us along to the very beginning of Last Jedi, where she goes to hand the lightsaber to Luke. So it was a really cool single issue. I liked it a lot.
I'll actually jump in there because I did read Star Wars Age of Resistance Rose to Co.
Oh, see, that was the one I didn't want to read. What did you think of that one? I'm glad we read the opposite ones, though. So what did you think?
I really liked it. It tells the kind of the backstory of Rose, where she came from, the planet, like the mining planet, and why she hates the First Order. But what it does well is kind of connect her to Leia, because in this we see her and her sister grow up and become these great warriors, while her sister becomes a great fighter pilot and she becomes a great mechanic. And in between all this, they find out that their home system has been destroyed by the First Order. And they have this reaction of, we need to go out and take care of them. Like, we need to go do something now, kill as many as we can, so on and so forth. And Leia kind of comes in and says, listen, I'm not going to stop you. If you want to go out and do that, you can. But nobody understands what you're going through more than I do. And I can tell you that it's much more... Basically, it's more fun to be a thorn in their side for a long time than to go and hit one blow now and probably die in the process. So it was a really cool deep dive into the idea of, what happens when you lose your home. Oh. It's not the most action-packed Star Wars story ever, but I did really, really enjoy it.
That's cool.
And I was just checking, they're both written by Tom. I think Tom Taylor's writing all the Resistance ones, because everyone I've read so far has been Tom Taylor.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I think they're cool little one-shots to get a little more info out of a character. Justice League 32. I don't know who... my notes for this issue say Commandy on the cover, damn it. The last boy on Earth made it to the cover of my Justice League book. I don't know who's getting paid to show this character off. I don't know. Who knows? But we see the Doom, the Legion of Doom getting closer to the totality. I like in the huge battle of everything, Grodd complains about there being too many flashes. That was one of the parts I liked him. They're like, yeah, there's too many flashes now. Like, I don't like this. And also the Legion of Doom seems to be having second thoughts with Lex Luthor, which is pretty interesting. Like, maybe Perpetua isn't promising all the things that, like, what's in it for us now? Because Lex Luthor seems kind of selfish, and rightfully so. They should have their second thoughts about it. All the scenes with like the Justice Society, the Justice League fighting together are pretty awesome. And even the scenes like the full pages of like the Justice League fighting the DC 1 million characters are awesome. And then they get to team up after, which is really cool too. That was pretty awesome. So like the Brainiac had control of all of them, and then they kind of they saved the Justice League 1 million, but then Brainiac's like, aha, well now I'm gonna turn into this giant Brainiac. So now he's called Brainiac 1 million, which was pretty ridiculous, but it was really cool. And then at the whole JSA Justice League side of things, Aquaman jumps in to save them, which is pretty awesome. It was pretty epic, right? With the giant Kraken. That was really cool. And then at the end, we find Perpetua has made it to where the Anti-Monitor is, because the whole end all of this is like she needs Anti-Monitor on her side to reshape the multiverse, blah blah blah. And well, Anti-Monitor sides with the Justice League, so this next issue we're going to see this giant battle. I'm sure it's going to be crazy, but I enjoyed it a lot for sure. Did you read it?
I'm just realizing I didn't get a copy.
Oh.
No, so I have a talk with somebody.
I was like, man, he's not sharing this excitement of like all these splash pages, but there's some really epic pages in there of like the teams with each other. So you're in for some good stuff, that's for sure. Inferior 5 #1. Did you read that?
I did.
Do you want to talk about it? Well, just my quick thoughts. I don't really know what's going on. I know we're in a future where the metahumans are being marked and like taken over by the Dominators, that like really ugly yellow alien race. We're in Dangerfield, Arizona. They talk about like there was a battle for Metropolis where Superman fell. Captain Atom had a resistance force. So it's really cool stuff they're talking about. We're in like a post-apocalyptic era. I like the I like the whole little side note of like the character reading a comic book and saying like, why do they have to put real world stuff in my comic book? You know what I mean? Like, why can't they leave the comic book stuff like comics and leave like all real world references out? And I was like, amen. Like, that would be great. Yeah, so there's something going on where this had happened before, but like one of the parents is being taken away by the aliens or something like that of the meta children, or at least that's what I'm getting the vibe of like they're stealing. If there's like a single parent, right, they steal the parent away and like the kid is left alone.
So I did a tiny bit of research into this because I'm not the biggest DC guy, but I love Jeff Lemire. This takes place after the invasion event in 1985.
Okay, so they talk about the invasion, so that's
So we're in a pre-crisis DC continuity in this.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I like you was very lost through most of it, but I enjoyed what they were doing. It more than anything makes me want to go back and read Invasion.
Yeah,
and then come back to this book.
Yeah, I agree. I might do that too.
I do like the story that they're telling in terms of, yes, for some reason, single parent households are being brought to this town and then the parents are being taken away. So there's obviously a plan for these children. But I will say if you're not like a big DC historian or just somebody who enjoys the work of Giffen and Lemire, it's probably not a great book for you because it is smack dab in the middle of a continuity that's not around anymore.
Yeah. Then two really quick ones. Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons Part 2, Painscape. Really good issue. Rick realizes there's something going on like this like epidemic across the world of everybody's into Dungeons and Dragons all of a sudden. Like all the commercials on TV are Dungeons and Dragons related. Something's going on that like they've been infected with this disease that makes them all like Dungeons and Dragons. So he ends up in a tussle in another dimension with these characters that he created that have turned on him, like characters that he originally created for Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a pretty cool story. He's fighting with those guys while him and Morty go to that dimension. So him and Morty are trying to get out of there while and they're like, one is like an old mage that he created. They all have like Rick in the name. Rick Sorcerer or something like that. They're all like really stupid names. Even Morty's like, wow, dude, these are like really dumb names that you came up with. So it's all Dungeons and Dragons related, all tons of like, Dungeons and Dragons puns, and it's just really fun and really cool to check it out. Jim Zub is writing this one too, so it's pretty cool.
Yes.
And then I read our last guest on the show, Dan Walters. I read Devil Within #1 because it is available for purchase on Comixology.com, and it was a really good first issue. I don't know anything about that folklore of like the evil skull that you guys had mentioned. Really creepy. So like, the kids want to get in trouble. They go investigate. They want to do like this paranormal investigation. They go to this abandoned home and find the skull. Well, the boy who touches the skull gets possessed by a demon in the first issue. That's pretty much where we're at. Really good first issue. It wants me to read. It wants me to come back to read the rest of it for sure. So I really like the issue.
Good.
Check it out.
So I got a pile.
Yeah.
Superman #15. It's kind of like the conclusion of what's going on. We get the whole Unity Day backstory and how we create the United Nations of Planets. And the Legion of Superheroes invite Superboy to come to the future, and he says, well, I got to think about it. I want to go back home and see my mom. And it ends in a way that they're going to go pick up Damian and have a Super Sons issue.
Oh, okay.
Not bad, but it's kind of like an intermediate story where they're in between two and trying to figure it out. Spider-Man by J.J. Abrams.
Oh, that's right.
This is an alternate dimension story. This isn't the main continuity story. But in this dimension, Spider-Man's fighting this alien that comes and kills Mary Jane. And Mary Jane had a son at one point, Ben Parker. So this is really the story about Ben Parker. Spoilers if you want to know nothing about this book, but we have a time jump and Peter is stopped being Spider-Man. And he's going through a bunch of stuff. He's not really around, and Ben is being raised by Aunt May. And Ben is having issues when he starts to figure out that he's gaining these powers. And then Aunt May sends him up to the attic and says, well, I think you need to spend some time up here. Look in this spot. There's something you should see. And it ends with him finding the Spider-Man costume. So we're kind of getting an alternate dimension story. That it makes sense because I say it's Spider-Man by J.J. Abrams, but it's really Spider-Man by Henry Abrams. Yeah. J.J.'s son is the one that's really writing this, and I feel like this is the story of him kind of telling what it's like to be the son of someone great. And I get where that's going. It was really good. Sarah Pacelli's art was fantastic. I would recommend it.
Cool, because we were a little iffy about going into that one.
Yeah, you never know going into something like that. Absolute Carnage #3 was a fun issue. It was a lot of just punchy, and it was also an issue to get all the old Avengers who have been taken over by Carnage or Venom in the past, put them in the machine created by the maker, and basically get them off the board. So that we can't just say, oh, the Avengers came and saved everybody. They really, this is their way of getting everyone off the board and making this a Venom versus Carnage story. Done in a good way because, as the story has been told, everybody who's been possessed by Venom has a codex, and that's what Carnage is going after. But the last page was actually really interesting because as they're putting him in this machine, the maker isn't around right now. So they had Bruce Banner check out the machine. And Bruce Banner's doing everything when Venom says, you know what? All you want to do, Eddie, is run away from this guy. We need to finish this. So he possesses Bruce Banner, and we get a hulked out Venom.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's going to be cool to see in the next issue. Guardians of the Galaxy #9. I really like this issue, too. It was a lot of Star-Lord and his father talking about why what Star-Lord's father's doing isn't right, and how the church has always been on the wrong side and done the wrong thing. With all that, we finally get to see who the Messiah is going to be, and it was a surprise, actually. We get the original Drax. Not the Drax we know from the movies and the most recent Guardians of the Galaxy comic, but the original one before he was combined with the human to create the Drax that we know. So that was a very interesting plot twist that I did not see coming. Cool. And then there's a lot of Rocket Raccoon in a giant mech suit fighting things. Him and Groot end up finding Magnus as a little boy and have to are talking to him to try to get him to join them to help against the church. History of the Marvel Universe #3. I kind of have the same thing to say about this every issue. I enjoy it, but it really is a step-by-step guide through Marvel history. So we kind of start this issue with the Fantastic Four and get into the modern mythos of Marvel. If you want to learn more about where Marvel came from in kind of a very condensed way, in terms of the stories, not the actual behind the scene, it's a really good book. I enjoyed it. Black Hammer Age of Doom #12. This is actually the final issue, so I don't want to spoil too much, but we get a closure to the whole story. But at the same time, Lemire says in the back of the book that there are more Black Hammer books coming. He does have more stories he wants to tell in the universe.
Cool.
But possibly for the main characters that we've seen in this book so far, it is the closure for what they've been doing. And then I will end it on House of X #5. Okay.
Catch us up on what's going on in this book.
So last issue, or actually 2 issues ago, you probably remember me talking about how the X-Men went on the suicide mission. They're all dead. And I said, well, we're in another timeline because the X-Men aren't dead. We are not in another timeline. Oh. This is our timeline. So, remember that. Then last issue I told you about this Mr. Sinister thing, and he's collecting all the DNA for the mutants throughout time. Remember that. So, we start off this issue, and Gold Balls shows up, along with 3 other mutants who I've never heard before. Gold Balls is the most useless mutant in all of time. His entire mutant power is he can create gold balls. Hickman has found a way to make him the most important character in X-Men history.
Oh my god.
So, gold balls are actually an organic egg that when given DNA can give birth to a person.
What?
Mutant or human.
What?
So, Gold Ball creates the egg. Xavier comes in with the DNA he got from Mr. Sinister. Let's say Cyclops. Injects it. Then you have another mutant whose ability is to force the DNA to fuse and create a fetus. Then you have another mutant whose entire ability is she can create a force field around an object and make it fast forward or reverse in time. In this case, fast forward. So she fast forwards it to when they're an adult.
What the hell?
So now you say, but Chris, it's just a clone. It's not really Scott Summers. Well, that's where Xavier comes in again. Xavier's ability to read people's minds lets him copy their personality and then put it back into their body. Xavier now has the ability to resurrect any mutant he feels.
So they resurrected the whole X-Men that got wiped up?
So all the X-Men who died in that suicide mission are now resurrected.
What the hell? Why even go through this? This is the most comic book science explanation of it. This is worse than Scott Snyder, dude.
This is the most comic book thing ever, and I love it. So that happens, and we get this whole, like, ceremony to prove that they're actually people and to show, like, the mutants that this is a thing that works and that we have now cheated death. That's the first half of the book.
Wow. What a ride. That's only the first half.
The second half of the book, we get all the mutant villains are coming to Krakoa. And everybody's kind of like, well, why are they coming? They're villains, they're bad people, we don't want them. And Xavier has made a pact with Apocalypse, basically saying, like, this is our nation. We just went to the UN. We are now a nation. We can trade. We can do all these things. So if you are going to live here, you live by our law. You have immunity over all your past sins. But if you sin again, you are doomed to Krakoa law. So the book ends with Apocalypse and Xavier making a pact and joining forces. So now, the X-Men have cheated death, have the power of every mutant in existence, and are their own nation state. I don't know what the fuck Hickman's doing, but I'm loving it.
All right.
This is the weirdest book I've ever read, and I'm loving every second of it. I do it's on issue 5 now, so we're gonna get like 2 or 3 more issues because it's 2 series going at the same time. When it comes out in hardcover, if anyone's even slightly interested, I recommend checking it out and jumping in because it's been a crazy, crazy ride.
That sounds wild.
Yeah,
that is nuts. Well, that's the book to end it on, I think.
It is. So next week when we get Powers of X, whatever, we'll have a nice talk. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's happening for the X-Men for the next 2 to 3 years because
he's like, you like the X-Men? I just killed him. Well, you still like him? I just brought him back. It's like, wait.
it killed me because you like literally the first couple panels is like Gold Balls walking in like all tough, and I was like, fucking Gold Balls, like he does nothing,
right?
He's stupid. And then it's just like, oh, you thought he was stupid? Listen to this. And they explain the whole thing. I'm just like, God damn it, Hickman.
Wow.
You beautiful bastard.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, Mike, if people want to see more of Beautiful Bastards, where can they find you on the internet?
Fortress Ricker on Twitter. Where can they find you and or the show, Chris?
Well, they can find me at Fortress Chris on Twitter or FCN_official for the show on Twitter. Of course, FortressComicNews.com, where everything we do is right there. And if you want to go the extra mile, Patreon.com/FortressComicNews, where you can get... Currently, you can just get the Bat Friends podcast 3 days early. There will be an exclusive Bat Friends podcast going up because we thought we lost an episode, so we re-recorded the episode.
Oh.
And instead of launching both of them for free, I decided to give a little gift to anybody that gives us money.
Nice.
And there's more announcements coming. Mike and me are talking. But if you are just a freeloader, go ahead and give us a 5-star review, subscribe, share, and all that fun stuff. Just doing that is a ton of help. So since I'm at the edge and I can no longer talk, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.